Hi everybody, and welcome to video module 5, Plagiarism and Academic Honesty and Citation. So for the first part of this module, we'll be having a chat with Mr. Brown, Mr. Ralph, and Mr. Dickinson. And we'll just be talking a little bit about academic honesty and academic malpractice here at ISM and in the IB. So I'm going to get us started just by giving you a brief explanation of what plagiarism is. In a nutshell, it is borrowing someone else's words and ideas and using them as if they were your own. So plagiarism can be intentional or accidental, but the consequences are the same. And so examples of plagiarism include the more obvious to the not so obvious. So plagiarism includes borrowing someone else's essay, downloading one from a free essay site, obviously. Plagiarism also includes using your own work that you have completed from a previous assignment and using it again for a new assignment, even though it's your own work. It also includes borrowing large chunks of text and putting it in there, even if it's cited, but without quotes. It includes sentences that you've borrowed from another author that are just direct sentences without indicating that they're a direct quote. Even taking sentences, entire sentence structures, and simply substituting out some vocabulary words. And then finally, even if all of the words are your own, the structure is your own, but you don't cite the thought that where you got that information, that also constitutes plagiarism. And so before we start talking about some of the consequences, you might be wondering, well then why would anybody plagiarize? Part of the reason why people plagiarize is oftentimes they don't exactly know what constitutes plagiarism. So it's really important that you have a strong awareness and understanding of what plagiarism is. Also, laziness. Sometimes you procrastinate and you put off your work until the last minute and you don't have time to do your work the proper way. And then also, I really believe that not taking good notes and having a note-taking method also leads to plagiarism, because what often happens then is if you skip that second part of step 4 of the Big Six, which is use of information, and that second part is the extraction piece, if you miss that and you simply go from reading your essay and then typing or reading an article and typing your essay, you're missing that, taking the facts out, combining them with something else to create something that's purely your own. If you skip that part, plagiarism is much more likely to occur. So let's talk a little bit about the consequences here at ISM for academic malpractice. Mr. Brown, Mr. Dickinson?
Yeah, I mean, just before we go on to the consequences, I'm going to just go up here to our core values. So right here, standing for ISM, is integrity. And I think with integrity, that's the beginning of our academic honesty policy. So when you think about, I think students sometimes think it's just a little bit of a game. Can we pass off someone's work? Can I cut a few corners? But the reality is, it's a huge piece in an academic institution to try to cheat the system or try to pass off someone else's work for your own. Because with us, integrity means doing the right thing when nobody else is looking. And so with our policy, this is in the student handbook, the new one this year, available online on the .org site. Page 25 starts talking about what is academic honesty, and it talks about integrity. And I think that's really important. And there are some consequences for those who end up either by intention or by accident not following through with our policy. Mr. Dickinson?
Yeah, again, before we move on to the consequences, Ms. Doyle mentioned accidental plagiarism. And this has come across my desk on a number of occasions where, for example, group work in science, where you've done an experiment in the lab, you've worked in a group of 3 or 4, and you've all collected the same data. That doesn't mean that the analysis should be a group analysis. And your teachers will tell you that they're looking for your ability individually to analyze that data. And so you get home that evening and you realize that you've left your data on a piece of paper in your locker or in your bag or whatever. And so you email your friend or you call your friend and they send you their data table either by instant message or Skype or email attachment or whatever, and you simply take that data table that they've already analysed with manipulated data, and you enter that into your lab report. That's plagiarism. I mean, the excuse that we get from students is it was a group project, the data's the same. Yes, the raw data's the same, but the analysed data must be individual. And so that idea of accidental plagiarism, where you're working in a group and you enter a group's data as your own work after a friend has analysed the data, is plagiarism. And that could go for anything other than science, where you're working in groups and you're collecting data. For a psychology group, for the Psych IA week this week, you might be working in groups collecting data. You still need to come up with your own personal approach to the way that you analyse and present that data. This has often led to a breakdown in friendships. Moving on to the consequences, the person that takes the data and inputs it into their lab report or into their essay obviously has plagiarised the work. It's not their work, it's the work, the intellectual property of somebody else that they've included and passed off as their own. But equally, the person that provided that work willingly and sent that work to their friend is the colluder. They've colluded in the act of academic malpractice, and the consequences for both the person plagiarising and the person supplying that work are the same. The consequence is that for an internal assessed piece of work or a homework or an IB assessment or an ISM assessment, the work will receive 0, which will certainly have a knock-on effect to your semester's grade. Repeated offence will have a more severe consequence, and we have had the case where academic malpractice has resulted in a student being asked to leave ISM on at least one occasion in my last 5 years here. So we up the consequence for each time a plagiarism or an academic malpractice offence occurs. But the first offence is that you'll receive 0 for that piece of work. You'll receive a warning and a reminder of what our academic malpractice policy states, and then hopefully you'll sort of learn from that it's just not worthwhile and you need to do that work yourself.
What's interesting, I think, Mr. D, and I'm sure you remember these conversations we've had with students, has been that most students understand that there's a level of consequences that get more serious. However, also included in the consequences is the fact that you may be ineligible for student awards that talk about good moral character. And that has become quite contentious, and we've had some disappointed students when they've talked about standing for things like NHS, cum laude society. All those sorts of things are vetted via our documentation, and so that's a critical piece. Another one is for a serious offender, we're obliged, really, because of the academic nature of our school, to relate that to colleges. So, with a serial offender, if you like, we will contact colleges, and colleges are made aware of that situation. Of course, it's up to them how they respond to that. We have had some fairly interesting situations with the IB. So, Mr. Ralph, how about IB?
Any sort of plagiarism comes under the umbrella term as malpractice in the IB, and there are 4 categories, and that is plagiarism, which is directly taking other people's work and putting it forward as your own; collusion, as Mr. D hinted at; duplication of work. So if you try and submit the same piece of work for 2 things, so for example, say you did a physics lab, which is submitted, and you use that same data and that same stuff for your extended essay, that's duplication. And a very big term, any other activity or behaviour that gains an unfair advantage, which is open to all sorts of interpretation, but that could be things like taking a cell phone into an exam, falsifying your CAS record. It can be a whole host of things. And the IB, again, make no distinction between deliberate or accidental. So if you accidentally forget to cite just maybe 1 sentence in an essay, that is sufficient for a plagiarism claim.
We had that a few years ago with the TOK essay.
3 years ago, one student did not receive a TOK essay grade because even though she had referenced everything in their essay, she'd missed 1 sentence. That was enough for that to receive a 0, for her to effectively not get a diploma. So it's a really big deal, and there's not much we can do as a school to support you in that. You as a student, whenever you're part of the IB diploma and you submit work, you sign off. This is my own work. You agree to the terms and conditions that we all do on websites all the time without reading that small print, but the small print still exists, and as soon as you sign off on it, you are declaring it as your own work, and if it's not, we can't defend you on those terms. The accidental things are often, I think, as Miss Jewell hinted at, where students are in a rush, they haven't thought it through, they haven't planned very well, they're doing things at the last minute. This one student, for example, with her TOK essay, she'd missed the deadline. She was rushing to get it done on the last day, hadn't got her draft sorted out. The teacher didn't have a chance to read through and check it. It went away. Unfortunately, that cost her a diploma. In terms of the penalty, the IB kind of have 3 stages or 3 different categories of punishment, if you will. Firstly, we can make an appeal and say this was an accident and we will go into bat for you if we think it's a genuine mistake, and the IB have the right to say, okay, no unfair advantage was gained, we will allow that let that slide.
And this happened in the May 2014 exam session. Mr. Ralph, on at least 4 occasions, mentioned what was allowed into the exam and not allowed into the exam. Of course, a cell phone is not allowed into the exam. But there was a series of circumstances where, by accident, a student used the phone between paper 1 and paper 2, put it in her jacket pocket, and it went back into the exam. She wasn't even aware it was in the jacket, didn't use it at all, but the IB had to investigate that, and for a while we weren't sure how that was going to work out.
And as Mr. Brown hinted, at one point we thought she was not going to get a diploma. We reported that to the college. She was in college already. That put her college place at risk, just the accidental taking of a phone into the exam. The second thing they can do is they can say, right, we'll give you a 0 for that component. So for most subjects, if you took history as an example, you have 4 components that make up your final IB score. If you're seen to plagiarise or collude in one of those, it can mean a 0 for that particular component. And the third is you get a 0 for the subject itself, and that means you automatically receive no diploma. Now, if that's an extended essay or a TOK essay, a 0 in that component automatically means no diploma. So, it's seen very seriously here.
And the other thing, Mr. Ralph, is not only has Turnitin.com and those sorts of things and electronic checking of papers changed the landscape for students, but equally more and more of the IB work is electronically graded as well.
Yeah. Can I just interject there for a second as well? Juniors, you already know how serious I certainly take exams, internal school exams. As sophomores last year, you'll have heard me and the other chief proctors announce on multiple occasions about having material which may give you an unfair advantage in the exam, and that could include a piece of paper in your pocket, a cheat sheet, for example, or it could include a smartphone that's in your pocket, and it could include a calculator which has not had the illegal apps and progs and RAM cleared appropriately. It was amazing that last year in the, I think it was, some of you might remember, in the sophomore exam, outside I announced about cell phones, and some people went scurrying off, putting their cell phones in their bags or in their lockers and locking them up. And in the exam then, everyone was seated silently, about to begin, and I thought, I'll just announce one more time for anyone who has either cell phones or calculators in their possession. And this was an exam, I think it was English, where neither a cell phone nor a calculator was needed. And there were 37 cell phones and calculators then brought to the front and placed on the chief proctor's table. And it was probably a genuine mistake. Nerves outside, you didn't hear the instructions properly, you walked in, you found the calculator or the cell phone was in your pocket, and therefore the internal school exams, we treat these very seriously, and it's all, I think, good training for when you come to do your IB exams, which in turn is good training for when you take your college exams after the second, third, fourth year of university. And I think you really do need to be fully aware of the consequences if you're found to be in breach of any of these regulations, so that you can make an informed decision. You can train yourself to lock your cell phone, lock your calculator in your bag, in your locker, away, so that is not going to be an issue.
Can I just piggyback onto that a little bit? it also now, in our current electronic landscape, goes beyond just the exam and having a cell phone in an exam. The IB have a regulation that you must not discuss the exam within 24 hours. And when, again, we had one issue this year where one student had sat her economics exam and she got involved with some students in Japan and in Holland who were texting and saying, oh, the economics exam was pretty easy apart from the question on X. The IB found out. That was a big problem. She almost lost her diploma because she was involved in a text discussion with two other students via WhatsApp. It's a very difficult thing to defend. As soon as the IB found out, they wanted us to check her cell phone, they wanted to send digital information off. So not only can you not take a cell phone into the exam, you must be very careful, given the sort of global context and time differences and the electronic connection now, of talking to other people outside of the exam in other places. If you're found to do that by posting things on Facebook, through Twitter, through WhatsApp, whatever it is, the IB are monitoring these things as well. And if it comes to light to them, you can lose your diploma very, very easily.
I love the fact that we're doing this for you guys. I hope you're listening. It's not about trying to scare you at all. It's about trying to suggest, what are the policies, what are the requirements, and the right way to do things. And there are certainly a lot of resources available at ISM. The HSMC, the handbook in the back has MLA and APA referencing guide and so on. And there are many online sources and so on, right, Ms. Dool?
That's right. Just check out the HSMC research page, and there's all kinds of citation examples and reference guides. I know I've learned a lot during this discussion, and I hope you have too. So thank you, Mr. Brown, Mr. Ralph, and Mr. Dickinson, and thank you all.
Bye!
Bye, good luck.
This is the question portion of the video module number 5, Academic Malpractice and Citation. The first several questions will only deal with academic malpractice from the video chat from Mr. Brown, Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Ralph, and Ms. Dool. So question number 4, if you haven't opened your Google form already for Module 5, go ahead and do that. Give 3 examples of plagiarism. So from the video, what are 3 examples of plagiarism? These can be some obvious examples and maybe a few examples that are not so obvious. Pause the video and complete question 4. Question 5. List 3 common reasons for why people plagiarize. List 3 common reasons for why people plagiarize. Pause the video and answer question 5. Question 6. List 3 consequences from ISM and or the IB for academic malpractice. List 3 consequences from either ISM and or from the IB for students found to have committed academic malpractice. Pause the video and answer question 6. Question 7. What does the I stand for in ISM's core values? And how does that relate to academic malpractice? So what does the I stand for in ISM's core values? And how does that relate to academic malpractice? Pause the video here and complete question 7. This is the citation portion of video module number 5. In this module portion, we'll be looking at citation and how to create individual citations for sources, as well as how to format a citation page for both MLA and APA styles. So first of all, just looking again here at the ISM HSMC research page, where all of the databases and everything are, there's also a big section here all about citation. And so this absolutely is really everything you need to know in order to be able to create your citations appropriately. And this is including in-text citations as well. So first of all, what I suggest is always when you're starting a project and you're going to need to collect sources and eventually create citations, create your citation page, just create a blank Google Doc and start putting citations into it. You can reformat it later, change it up later, but just have one place where you're starting to just collect all the stuff, because then you can delete citations you don't actually use, but it's nice to have them all in one place. So once you get your Google Doc set up, you're good to go. And the first thing I'd like to show you is creating a citation for a database article. And so database articles, and actually Google Scholar articles, they have many, many benefits, as we've discussed in previous modules. But one of the benefits of using databases is they usually actually have the properly formatted citations in different styles in the article itself. So any article that you use that is from EBSCO, for example, EBSCO History, EBSCO Science, Student Research Center, anything that's EBSCO, you just have to go over here to the right, click the Cite button, and voila, it's in alphabetical order. So the ones that you will use the most are APA, so all you would do is highlight, copy that, and paste that into your reference. Because for APA, the title of your citation page is references. So you would just copy that, paste it right into your document. If you're using MLA, just scroll down. MLA citation page is called Works Cited. So that you would just copy and paste right into your document. Done. So one of the benefits of using EBSCO. So this means you do not have to use Easybib for any of these EBSCO articles that you find. JSTOR is different. I kind of looked through JSTOR and it doesn't format the citations for you, so you actually will need to use Easybib when you create a citation for JSTOR. But if you use Google Scholar, or no, Teen Health and Wellness, let's look at that first. At the bottom of the article that I use, it's got the citation in MLA, so I would just copy that whole thing there, or in APA. And I would just copy that. All right. And then Google Scholar actually is really nice because that allows you to grab those properly formatted citations as well. So let's just open up Google Scholar right here. And I'll just do a quick search on China, let's say. And let's say I look at this article and I think, yes, this is something that I potentially want to use, and I definitely want to keep the citation for it. All I do is underneath it on the list of results, I click Cite, boom, MLA, copy, paste, APA, copy, paste. All right, so they're already formatted where the correct piece of information, in this case the author's name, is at the front. APA then goes to date, whereas MLA goes directly to the title, and so it's all formatted for you. Google Scholar, EBSCO, Teen Health and Wellness, got you covered. The next thing, however, is if you actually have a website. Like, let's say this is from The Atlantic, so this is just a Google article that I found, but I done my RADCAB or my CRAP method, and I determined that this is something that is credible and I want to use it. So I do actually need to create a citation using Easybib for this website. So I head back to my research page, and I've got kind of two sections of this research page. The top 3 links here are MLA. The next 3 links are APA. So let's say I'm going to do MLA. That's the style that my teacher has requested. So I'm going to go here to Easybib. That's what I actually need to do to create the citation. So Easybib actually, let's say for MLA here, I can do a little thing where they do a cite for you. And this is something that you can use. So you copy the actual URL for the website, and then I just paste it in here. So this is a website, and then I click Cite It. Okay, so they actually say, here's the stuff that we found out about it just from the information we could find on the website. And then they're saying they believe that this site is credible. So this is interesting. This is new. I haven't really seen this before, but I continue. And then it actually fills in the little bubbles here. So I've got the most popular social network for young people, texting. This is the title. It actually does give me the author, Derek Thompson. Website title is The Atlantic. Here's the publisher sponsor, Atlantic Media Company. Here's the URL. They actually now in MLA 7, the most recent version, they say don't use the URL unless it's really hard to find the website, which is kind of not the case anymore usually. So I would recommend not using the URL unless you're specifically instructed by your teacher to use it. So display URL, no, we're not going to display it. Electronically published, it pops this in, and then the date you access it actually is automatically populated with today's date. So you have to, however, look through what they've populated and compare it. You need to actually think, is this correct? Did they populate the right information in here? And did they complete all of the information? Because sometimes, depending on the website, maybe it'll just put in half, and you actually have to go and find the other half. So you really need to not be lazy and really look to see if you can find the contributor. If not, you can always add another contributor if there's more than one author. Look to find the publisher sponsor, which is usually at the very bottom. A lot of times it says the company that actually sponsored it. So down here somewhere. So you really need to scour the website to find all of the pertinent information that you need to create your citation. So this is a citation generator, right? So it actually creates one citation for a source in the proper format. You actually have to make sure that all the info is in there first. You do this work, click Create Citation, and then boom, here it is. So all you have to do is copy, paste that into your Works Cited page or your reference page, although this is MLA, so Works Cited, okay? And then it's basically the same thing. So for APA, same thing, you could paste it in and you could cite it, see if they do it right, continue. Okay, and so they're giving you a little warning about capitalization, blah, 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 data accessed, I want today, create citation, and then I've got a citation in the APA style, and I can paste that right in. So basically what you're doing with Easybib is creating something that's already created for you in a database or on Google Scholar. Okay? So that's Easybib. If you use the APA style, you actually will need to sign in for APA Easybib. MLA Easybib is free, but APA Easybib, I believe, still requires our username and password. We have to pay for that extra special. So this is where it is. You just click on this document and you can get that username and password if you need to use Easybib for APA. So these are the ways that you actually create the citations. And then once you create your citations, you actually need to format your citation page. Here again is where this research page on the website, on the HSMC website, will come in handy. So my very favorite thing in the world for citation help is the OWL, which I think a lot of you are familiar with. It is the online writing lab from Purdue University in Indiana in the United States. It's amazing. So here, this is the MLA formatting and style guide. And it's got, all about creating citations, but then it actually has my MLA Works Cited page, basic format. So this tells me how to put them all of my citations together into my official final Works Cited page. Got your basic rules, capitalization and punctuation, listing authors' names, alphabetical order, boom, there you go. And then you can actually look down here and it gives you a sample Works Cited page. So please, I really encourage you, when you finish your Works Cited page, compare it to their example. Make sure it looks just like this, with spacing, with hanging indents, with the title. Make sure everything about your work looks exactly like this, because it does matter. It also gives you a look here. You can click on this MLA sample paper, and it shows you with these little boxes indicate different aspects of the paper that is formatting and how it is MLA formatting. So that would be really helpful if you've got a paper. They've also got a whole explanation of what to do with tables, figures, and examples. And I know that for some IAs and IB, EEs, you've got to have tables and all kinds of stuff. So this is so detailed that I don't think I've ever had a situation that a student has asked me about that I couldn't find the explanation, no matter how kind of out there the question was. I couldn't find the explanation in here. And then that goes for APA as well. So if I just kind of click back and I go back to my research page, I can do the same thing for APA. So if you've got an APA page you've got to do, this is called references, not works cited in APA. So down here I can find a reference list, basic rules of my reference list. You know, and then it gives you a sample paper here. It's got tables and pretty much everything that you need to know as far as reference list goes. Okay. And then the next thing that I just wanted to mention and demonstrate is in-text citations. It gives really thorough information and instruction for how to complete in-text citations. And I know this is a big thing in high school papers that might be different from what you experienced in middle school as to how seriously you need to think about your in-text citations and how thoroughly you need to include them, definitely for the EE. And so it gives you basics about APA in-text citations. It gives you examples, okay, right here. What if it's a quotation? What if it's a long quotation? And if you're just summarizing or paraphrasing something, what does that look like? It's got also information about in-text citations and different author scenarios. So if you've got one author, multiple authors, an unknown author, you know, several authors with the same last name, really pretty much any scenario you can think of for in-text citation, it covers. And then same thing for the MLA in-text citation information. One thing that comes up somewhat frequently is like an indirect citation. So if your source is quoting another source, that's called an indirect quotation. Well, what do you do in that situation? And that actually is discussed right here, citing indirect sources. What does that look like? Also, internet sources. Well, there's no page numbers. What do you do for that? Everything is in here. You really don't need any other reference material, in my opinion, to get your citation questions answered, okay? That is pretty much it for citation. So just pay attention to the details. Citation isn't hard, it's just really persnickety, and you need to follow the details to the letter, both in creating the citations and in formatting your citation page, and then in text citations. So as long as you refer to this a lot and you make sure everything you've done follows the correct format, you are good. And that is it. Thank you for watching this portion. This is the video question portion for video module number 5, Academic Malpractice and Citation, and these are the citation questions. Question 8. When creating a citation for a database article, such as EBSCO or Teen Health and Wellness, do you need to use Easybib? When creating a citation for a database article, such as EBSCO or Teen Health and Wellness, do you need to use Easybib? Yes or no? Pause the video, answer question 8. Question 9. Where can you find properly formatted citations for a source in Google Scholar? Where can you find properly formatted citations for a source in Google Scholar? Answer question 9 while you pause the video. Question 10. When and why do you need to use Easybib? When or why do you need to use Easybib? What does it allow you to do, or what does it help you do? Pause the video while you answer question 10. Question 11. List 3 tips for using Easybib effectively and appropriately. List 3 tips for using Easybib effectively and appropriately. Pause the video while you answer question 11. Question 12. List 3 kinds of information available on the OWL Purdue website. List 3 kinds of information available on the OWL Purdue website. Pause the video and answer question 12. And finally, question 13. What is the citation page called in MLA and in APA? So they're called different things depending on which style you're using. So what is the citation page called in MLA versus APA? And include both names in your answer. So you might write MLA and then whatever that name is, and then APA and whatever that name is. And so this is the final question in the video for Module 5, and there's one more I think on the form. Submit that form and you will have completed video Module 5.